ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ጥራት ባለው ስልጠና ልዩነት መፍጠር ዋናው ዓላማው ነው። ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅና ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ፕሮግራም ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድና ኢኮኖሚክስ፣ ኤምኤ በሆስፒታሊቲ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምኤ በሎጂስቲክስና ሰፕላይ ቼን ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምኤስሲ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት ተማሪዎቻችን በልዩነት ይማራሉ። በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች ስልጠናው ይሰጣል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በዲግሪ ፕሮግራም በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት በምዝገባ ላይ ነን። በአጫጭር ኮርሶችም በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆስቴስ፣ በሆስፒታሊቲ ማኔጅመንት እናሰለጥናለን። አድራሻ ከ22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
Melat.
Yes, it's okay.
Now I'm trying to start my discussion.
Okay.
We try. My name is Tamunu Girma. First, I try first slide. This is a course is called Financial Statement Analysis. Now the title called Security Market and Stock Regulation. Now, by what does mean security market? Is a market. Security market is a component of wider financial market where securities can be bought and sold between subjects of the economy on the basis of demand and supply. Now, security market encompasses or it includes stock market, bond market, derivative markets, where price can be determined and participant both the professional and non-professional can meet. It's a place where financial securities are sold and bought. That's called security market. So this the number of professionals here is a participants. That's called the professional and non-professional participants. They come together and they meet in this marketplace. So there are a number of professional participants in the security market. This is called brokerage, broker dealers, market makers, investment managers, and speculators. Wow. Now, security market is used to an economy to attract new capitals for starting as a starting point of accumulation of capital. So it is transfer real estate assets of and the financial assets, determine prices which will balance demand and supply, provide means to invest money both in short term and the long run. Here says that security market is used as an economy to attract what? To attract new capitals. As a foundation. So security market components says that we are saying. So security market can be split or divided into two levels. The first is primary market. The second is secondary market. Now the primary market is called where new securities are sold or issued. The primary market is a part of the capital market. It deals with issues of new securities. Securities means shares, bonds, and so-called bonds and derivatives. Now, having this says, so companies, government, and public sectors institutions can be obtain funds through what? Sales of new stock or bond issues. That's bond means as like just like a finance source of finance like. So these are typically done through what? Syndicate security dealers. The process of selling new issues to investors is called underwriting. In the case of new stock issues, this is called public offering. Now, the characteristics of primary markets. What seems primary market? This is market where new long-term equity capital is accumulated or gathered. The primary market is a market where securities are sold for the first time. You must underline that this one. Security market, the primary market is a marketplace where securities are sold for the first time. Therefore, it's called what? New issue market. In the primary issue, securities are issued by company directly to investors. The company receives the money and issue new security certificate to investors. So, primary issue are used by companies for purpose of setting up new business or expanding or modernizing existing business for expansion purpose. The primary market perform critical functions of facilitating capital formation in the economy. The new issue market doesn't include certain other sources of new long-term external finance. External finance like bonds not included under the primary market, such as loans from financial institutions. Borrowers in the new issues market may be raising capital for converting private capital into public capital. This is known as going public. These are the features of the primary market. Now, we try to see the second one is the secondary market. Here is secondary market where existing security can be bought and sold from investors to other investors, not from the company. From investor to other investors. The secondary market is called the existing shares can be sold to other buyers or other investors. That's why secondary market. So secondary market can further split into organized exchange, such as stock exchange, and the other counter exchange, where individuals parties come together and buy or sell securities directly. For securities holder, knowing that secondary market exists in which their securities may be sold, converted to cash. Increase willingness of people to hold. People to hold bonds and thus increase the ability of firms to issue securities. Now the secondary market, also known as aftermarket. This is financial market where previously issued securities and financial instruments such as stocks, bonds, options, and futures are bought and sold. Here it says that it is aftermarket because previously sold or previously issued securities or financial instruments can be sold or bought. That's why secondary market. So the the other is the over the counter market or of exchange trading is a trade financial instruments such as stock, bond, commodities, or derivatives directly bought between two parties. So it's a marketplace which operate under defined set of regulations. There is a regulation here to accomplish buying and the selling of these security items. So the over-counter contract is bilateral contract in which two parties agree on how a particular trade or agreement is to be settled in the future. It is usually from an investment bank to its client directly. forward, and the swap are primary example of such contract. It is mostly done through what? Through computer or telephones. So for derivatives, these agreements are usually governed by international swap and derivative association agreement. So the types of financial instruments. Here are bonds, promissory notes, checks are a security contains a requirement to make full payment of bearer to check. So certificate of deposits, bills of loading are an example of financial instrument. Just promissory notes, time certificate, time deposit certificate, bonds, they are called financial instruments. So we have seen this here. The first one is promissory note. Promissory note referred to as a note payable. It's a payable, kind of a payable items in accounting, or commonly just a note, a contract where one party maker instruments, financial instruments is called a negotiable instrument. We have seen that bonds, promissory notes, and the checks are an examples of the financial instrument, or so-called negotiable instrument. Now the promissory notes is referred to as a notable note payable. It's called in account is called a liability account. Commonly just a note. It is contract where one party or maker or issuer, that's called the organization or the something, make unconditional promise in writing to pay some of money in the future. It's not specific under specific terms. The other one is a certificate of deposit, so-called time deposit, fixed time deposit account, CD. A time deposit, a financial product commonly referred to as to consumer by banks or institutions like credit institutions. The other is bond. Bond is an issued security. Issued security established in its holder right to receive from issuer of the bond within the time period specified. Just bond is an example of a liability account to pay some amount of money in the future, including interests. The principal plus interests, you may agree to pay some of money in the future. The other is stocks. Stocks you should call shares. We have two types of stocks or shares. The first one is common shares. The other one is preferred shares. Common shares are represent ownership in the company or claims like dividends on the portion of the profits. Which common shares are the portion of the company, investment on the portion of the company. So investors can get one vote per share to elect the board members. Here, the common share have a right to vote. The first, ownership in company and claim dividends. Annually, they share dividends from their net incomes. The other right is to vote. They have a right to vote for the membership, the boardship members. Whereas the preferred shares represent some degree of ownership in a company, but usually does not come with the voting rights. They do not have the right to vote. But the main difference is that they do not have writing votes. The other is they do not get dividend. Instead, they collect fixed amount of money, dividends. The preferred shares investors are usually guaranteed a fixed dividend forever. An advantage is that in event of liquidations, in the event of liquidation, preferred shareholders are paid off before common shareholders collect their money, but still after the debt holders. Preferred share stock may also be callable, meaning the company has option to purchase shares from shareholders at any time for any reasons, usually for a premium. Some people consider preferred stock to be more like debt than equity. I think it is. Thank you. I'm finished. Do you have any question? Antaresh,
Yeah. Yes.
do you have any questions or?
Okay. Now, Melat, do you have any questions? First of all, what was your topic?
Stock market and regulations. Stock regulation. Security market and stock regulation.
So my question is, why should we have to study the stock markets and regulations in relation to what you are, the subject of the day?
Stock security market and stock regulations. The course of the title is security market and stock regulations.
Yeah. What's the essence of?
Of course, in Ethiopia there is no stock market currently, so we don't have any regulations regarding that.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer to highlight on the stock market only. And there may be a little about the regulations. He said that their own regulations or binding rules to perform these activities. But we just till now we didn't start. Here's in the marketplace we operate under defined set of regulations. That regulation not clearly defined for me because we don't have in Ethiopia a stock market.
Okay. But there are stock markets all over. Like in Kenya, we have in Nigeria.
Locally. Kenya, Nigeria, American.
Yes.
Try to
New York.
say something.
Many others.
New York, yes, New York.
But my question is, why should we study the markets?
Only we have studied only the market because we don't have the stock market in Ethiopia. The stock market regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Only we have. We have in a sense to start this project in the near future.
Okay.
So
who are the main players or main participants in this market?
Investors, professionals, non-professionals, brokers, speculators, dealers.
And commercial banks.
And?
Market
Commercial
dealers.
banks.
Okay.
Investment managers.
Difference between what's the difference between capital markets and the money markets?
Capital markets long-term investments, whereas working capital here is a capital. Money market is a capital market, current market.
Examples of money
treasury bills.
Mm-hmm. Why are they falling under money markets?
Because they are short period of time. They short plan. Plan, yes.
Liquidity.
Okay.
Short-term plan.
Examples of long-term, for example, the
long-term like capital market, like bond markets, stock markets, or shares market.
Mm-hmm.
Derivative markets, and so on.
So, derivatives.
Yes.
What are derivatives?
Derivatives, like a long-term investment.
Are derivatives long-term?
Yeah, long-term investment, an agreement or obligations.
Why?
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
It's long term in the sense of what?
In sense of
Because
the
long term is in terms of maturity.
long term, yes, in terms of maturity, yes.
Yeah. So how long do derivatives mature? Or what are derivatives?
Options are derivatives. Options.
So how do they operate?
It may or may not be like a contingent account. Derivatives are a contingent account, I think. As a contingent liability. That's why I said derivatives. May or may not be. Take the right to convert it.
Now, the subject you are studying now is risk analysis and portfolio management and analysis.
Okay.
Why are we looking at markets? What is the relationship?
To identify the market, the source of the capitals, the source of finance, and the demarcation between what's the primary market and what's the secondary market. Why they include, what's not include. I think that's why. To know the source of finance.
Okay, apart from source of finance?
To know the risks, what makes investment here, to invest here, what it affects.
So it is source of finance as well as you know, I keep on saying this,
Okay.
if you have to invest, you cannot invest in isolation. You have to invest in a market
If you're not,
or in a
if you don't,
certain industry. Because that's where we get to purchase the investment. So if you want, like, for example, to invest in treasury bills, you have to go to the market and buy the treasury bills.
yeah.
So market is a place where there is a exchange of
Securities.
goods is happening there, securities. This is where you meet the people who would be willing to sell and those who would be willing to buy. So it's a medium of exchange in terms of goods and finances and services. So we cannot study investment, all right, in that same wavelength. We are talking about portfolio investment without understanding the market. So market is very paramount in fact, if you are to do analysis and pick up the right investment opportunities or projects, then you have to understand the market very well, be able to your funds in terms of investment. So this is why we have to understand the markets, other than just trying to understand how to evaluate projects and selecting projects, because it's not only technical, but there are also fundamental factors that you have to look at. And that's why it's important to understand the market. There are so many ways, because we have to minimize risks and we have to maximize our returns, because that is the essence of investment. And in finance, basically, our decisions we are meant to be risk-averse decision makers. So we want to minimize the risk as much as possible and maximize the returns as much as possible. So for us to achieve this, then it requires you to understand the market, because if you know where to source the funds, because there are so many avenues that you can get your capital, sources of capital. There are so many avenues you can invest your money in, but you see, not all avenues are optimal at a given time. So these avenues are available in the market, all right? These avenues are available in the market, where you can source funds, where you can put your investment. So understanding the market is very critical. And you know, when you talk about the market, there are so many dimensions that come in on board. For example, a market cannot operate without participants. And who are the key, the sum of the participants in the market? We have suppliers. We have suppliers, those who may be wanting to sell securities, those who are supplying the goods. All right. We have the banks which offer their mediation intermediaries between the savers and the borrowers. So if you want to borrow, you can borrow from the bank. You can borrow. You can save with the bank. You know. So bank being a money market, therefore it's a market that we need to understand, because that offers an avenue for you to save. It also offers an avenue for you to borrow from, isn't it? We have also foreign exchange markets. You know, if you want, like, for example, you want to fly to another country, you need to exchange your money with the other currency where you're going to. So you need to look for that market. So you must understand where the rates that are prevailing, which markets are available, and which one can offer you the right exchange rate that you may be willing to buy or to exchange with at that given time. So this is actually a market. Go for all those services whenever we want them, and we can actually get them. If you want, for example, if you want to buy shares of a certain company, you know, you just go to the capital market, and then through your brokers, you can buy the shares of that particular company, and then you become a shareholder. So there are different types of shares. We have preference and ordinary shares. It's good to know this, because when you talk about capital markets, then you have to understand which kind of shares are traded in such kind of markets. Banks do not issue exchange shares. All right. Banks offer short-term loans for users, But shares are things that you can buy and own for the rest of your life. And then we have different categories of shares. We have preference and we have ordinary. So you need to understand also the characteristics of each and how each one of them can be traded in the stock exchange. This is why we are training you. The fact that you don't have it in Ethiopia, I think, and it's high time you need to come up with a paper that will make the government think twice about creating one that will avail an avenue for institutions or government or private investors to be able to trade their shares or to trade their securities whenever they want to. So it offers that platform, which is okay and which is good. And even any foreign investor who may be willing to come into to invest into the country or to join to it's called what, joint venturing, co-investing with any member of or that any citizen from that country can come in through that means. So that is how some of these things are very important, and they give a media for which investors can easily exchange securities, come up with contracts. Like now, when you talk about derivatives, we have different contracts you can talk about, which involve trading across borders, so that you safeguard yourself against the risks of exchange, fluctuations in exchange, and the seller is as well also guarded against that. So you come to an agreement. There are so many ways there's a lot you can talk about derivatives, and I think is one of the areas one of you is going to talk about. So we need to appreciate markets from the word go, because without markets, then we cannot communicate, we cannot interact. We cannot interact with the environment in which we are operating. We cannot interact with other players in the market. We cannot get the essential, the essential opportunities, the opportunities that we may take advantage of given our position at that particular time. So that's why we say nothing can happen without dealing with the markets, and that is why we have to study markets under this course. It's good to understand that and be able to explain some of these core areas of markets that you may require as a finance manager for that particular reason. Any question, comment?
No, don't have.
Tamiru?
No.
Yes.
Okay, Malad?
So
No,
is
sir.
there need to
go
add
ahead.
anything? Is there anything that I need to add this note?
According to what I have been explaining, do you think there's anything you need to add so that you are precise to the point?
Okay.
I think.
Have you talked about the yes, Melat? Yeah.
She in Ethiopian context, what we do further in stock market.
To accomplish stock market?
Yeah, what we do.
What you do in the stock
What are
market?
the okay?
Oh, you add this in your PowerPoint.
I think you need to come
Ethiopian
up with
government.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think Ethiopian government has a plan to start a security market in the near future. Though it's necessary to know what are the regulations of this stock market, what are the relevant or the minimum requirement to start this market. It's important for us to know very well.
Okay.
These are relevant
Now,
questions.
when you talk about regulations, you know,
I think I said that it needs to be accomplished a defined regulations. What are these regulations? It's my questions. What are
you're asking a question?
Yeah.
So you answer this question.
Yeah. I need to know this question. This is it's a
Now,
marketplace which
when-
operates under a defined set of regulations. What are these regulations, defined regulations, to accomplish this stock market?
Okay,
I
this
think-
also our questions, Tamru. What are the regulations?
So
So
may have
you-
different
may-
countries have different regulations to accomplish this. But no, what are the minimum requirements or the minimum regulations to accomplish these
Ethiopia?
tasks? Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can answer it
I
in the
think-
next class.
I think the doctor may explain or may provide slightly short notes in regard to this one,
Okay.
as per your prior
Okay.
experience.
Okay. Let me guide you about regulations.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when you talk about regulation, financial markets are very sensitive in any economy.
Yes.
All right, they are very sensitive in the financial system in any economy is very important because that is how the main determinant of how the economy is moving in terms of growth, in terms of performance, in terms of employment, in terms of, and all these factors that probably count towards the economic growth of the economy. So a finance sector in every country is highly regulated. I know in Ethiopia you have Central Bank of Ethiopia. I don't know whether
National Bank of Ethiopia. National Bank of Ethiopia. Yes. NBE.
you don't have Central Bank of Ethiopia.
No, I have the so-called National Bank of Ethiopia, NBE.
So is the one that regulates banks?
Yeah, financial institutions, not only bank, insurance,
Yes.
banks, and
Yes.
other financial institutions controlled by
Yes.
this microfinance.
So
Regulated by
that is regulation we are talking about.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
When you talk about capital markets, do we have a capital market authority in Ethiopia?
I don't have
Something owned by the government overseeing. You don't have a stock exchange, so you don't have that. All right. But here we have, like in Kenya, we have the Capital Markets Authority, which is charged with regulating the operations of the capital markets in Kenya.
Okay.
Now we have Nairobi Securities Exchange. And for a company which wants to register with that security exchange so that the shares of that company be traded on that market, there are regulations. And for you to get registered, it is the mandate of the Capital Markets Authority to register you or not. But you see, now they have set the minimum requirements. For example, for a company to register or to be registered on the stock exchange, they have to be in operation for at least 3 years. before becoming public. That is a requirement. They have to have the statements, to provide the statement, the financial statements for the past those years, so that they show proof that they are eligible to join, to become listed on the stock exchange. They have to have some minimum capital requirement. They have to be posted, to have posted some profits for the at least 2 years, I think, before, prior to being registered, seeking for registration. So those requirements, they are on the website. If, in fact, if you can just Google Capital Markets of Kenya, Capital Markets Authority, Kenya, you will see, and then you go further and look for listing requirements. All right. So you will see all those requirements given by there, or they are on website, on the Capital Markets website for a company seeking registration. So once you are registered on the stock exchange, then it means your shares are eligible to be traded on the stock exchange. And there are also fees, some fees that are supposed to be paid for that to happen. And the essence is, the main purpose is just like the central bank controlling or regulating the commercial banks that are operating within the economy, is to safeguard the interest of the general public. Not everybody in the general public is a finance person, right? So, and not everybody has that knowledge of how these things work. So the government comes in to protect the interest of this majority who may not have the knowledge of how to deal with this kind of markets or whichever way. And then now, again, in the market, we have people of so many interests. There are those who make regulations is very important for this market, because many sectors actually rely on this sector for their survival, in terms of their savings, in terms of their borrowings, in terms of imagine a bank, a whole company which deals with the billions of shillings. Where is this money? This money is kept in the banks, isn't it? This money is kept in the banks.
Yes.
So how do you trust your billion shillings in the bank? So because the government has to come in and regulate that. So they regulate the operations of the bank. Banks cannot invest in certain areas because of the regulations. Just the kind of investment, so that the liquidity levels of banks is always available for people to access their funds whenever they want to. So if you just let that to the banks to do them by themselves, then they can take advantage of that and do away with the savers' money, and which the government has to come in and protect the interest of its citizens, because the majority of savers are small people who may not understand the operation and these issues of regulations and all that. So it's very important that this sector is highly regulated, and that's why government has to come in, and for the sake of protecting its citizens, then it has to set some rules for the operations of this kind of institutions, because they are special to all sectors of the economy.
Yes.
So those regulations you can mention, yes, like secondary markets are regulated, like even how you can buy shares and dispose of shares of a given company, Yes, you have to go through an agent. You can't just walk there and buy. Not everybody can just walk there and buy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have to go through a registered agent who has deposited some capital, and that capital is kind of security, so that in case he defaults in fulfilling the demands of the customers or the clients, then the capital is taken by the government to compensate the clients. So the government come in as a security for the clients against these investors or people who may just want to take advantage of the poor citizens who may not understand some of these operations that are going on in the market. Now, when you look at, when you study countries, there are different kinds of economies. There are those economies that are regulated, and there are those ones that are free economy or open economy. But you see now, that depends on the government that is in place. A free economy is one that allows, it's open to any investor to come in. But of course, there are those attached restrictions, probably just for the sake of not having the economy or the economy being run by outsiders. You know, so you have to make sure that you cap some of these FDIs, like if there are foreign investments coming into the country, to make sure that you retain your control of the country. Just like a company, you know, like if you are borrowing, you cannot borrow 100%, so that you are just using other people's money to run your company. You know, you have to have your capital, so that even when you are making decisions, you have the powers to make decisions, because your capital is the majority. All right. So there is the equity capital and the debt capital. So you find companies, if those companies that are going under, you'll find majority, they have a higher percentage of liquidity. I mean, a higher percentage of debt capital in the capital structure than equity capital. So it means they're exposing the company to the outsiders, who are the creditors. So creditors can take control of the company, and they can even take over the company at your expense. So you have to be keen, so that if you are investing in a certain company or a certain project or investment, make sure that your capital, your contribution is the highest, so that you command these others, and you need to regulate that. All right. Those are some of the theories that have been put across about the capital structure. And I think later on you'll have to study some of these things. So, Tamri, do you get any direction on regulations?
Yes, I got you.
Yeah. Now, you know, the government is supposed to be on watch, so that issues like the macroeconomic variables, like inflation, interest rates, have to be managed by the government.
Yes.
The you know, the flow of cash in the economy. All right, these are things that have to be managed by the government. So the government has to be seen to be on top of other things.
Yes.
And that's why the regulations have to come in.
Yeah. It's
and the government has.
Okay.
Yes.
The physical policy,
You're
like
saying something?
physical policy and monetary policy, are the methods of mechanisms.
Yes. To make sure that they manage the economy in terms of reducing the inflation rate, maintaining the interest rates to certain levels. You know, these are things that are happening, and for the government to achieve this, then they have to control the money market. Hello, Tamri.
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
doctor.
Yes, yes, yes,
Hello, doctor.
yes,
Now we are
yes.
Ethiopians are changing their currencies.
Mm.
Now it is one of the mechanism, I think, to control the inflation.
Mm. They are changing the currency from bir to
It's Berbers, the types of currencies, characters.
okay.
The securities also change it.
Yes, yes. You know, in Kenya, like recently, we came up with the new denominations of currency.
Also, we add additional one currencies, new denominations. That's called 200 birr.
So, yes, and these are things that actually have to be managed economically to ensure
Yeah.
that we achieve probably the growth rates that the government has put in place in terms of the economic growth and all that. So the
Yes.
controls have to be there, and those are now the regulations you're talking about. Because you cannot just leave the markets operate hayway without any measures, because they will take advantage of that to manipulate the poor citizens who are the main savers and the main you know when you talk about markets, it's not only just looking at the banks. You look at it from a white coat, like even the insurance companies, because people buy premiums and they pay for that. We have pension schemes and all these kind of markets. If you recall what we discussed about the markets and the vehicles of investment and all that, those are aspects of that. The mutuals, where you pool resources through savings, and then now you have, an accumulated fund which you now invest. You see, these are means of investment for small, people contributing, bringing money together and pulling resources together, and then now the huge capital can be invested on behalf of it. There's a manager who is managing that. So the same concept has to be applied even in the other areas like banks or the insurance banks. In Kenya, we have Kenya Insurance Authority, RBA, Retirement Benefits Authority. It's called Retirement Benefits Authority. I don't know whether you have that.
Okay.
So it has regulations on how retirement schemes have to invest and have to, the way they operate. They have set minimums, and those are things you can find on the web or on the Google. If you Google RBA Kenya, you get some of this information.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question? Melad, are you there?
She's not there, I think.
We've lost her.
Yes. Today is not good network. It's weak, I think.
The network.
We have only left 3, including the host.
Okay. Anyway. So I wanted to know whether we shall have any presentations tomorrow. Are you aware? Oh, tomorrow, Tamri, can you confirm that?
I think we don't have class tomorrow.
Mm.
Can I call somebody? To Baruch or somebody?
Okay.
If they send the email, they may have class. If not, if they may send the email, the password, we have a class. If not, we don't have. I think the ceremony, I think Sunday.
So now you will have to send me an email.
ልዩነት መፍጠር ዓላማችን ነው። ዓለም አቀፍ ተወዳዳሪ መሆን አለባችሁ። የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ጥራትና ደረጃውን የጠበቀ ስልጠና በመስጠት ብቁ ዜጋ እያፈራን ነው። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ፣ በቲኬቲንግና ሪዘርቬሽን፣ በሆቴልና ቱሪዝም ሙያዎች አሰልጥነን ተወዳዳሪ እናደርጎታለን። ኮሌጃችን ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና ከእንግሊዙ ICM ጋር በመተባበር ዓለም አቀፍ ዕውቅና ያለው ስልጠና እየሰጠ ይገኛል። በፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን፣ በበረራ መስተንግዶ የምንሰጣቸው ስልጠና ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና አለው። አድራሻ ከጎላጉል ታወር 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።